And now to talk more about the issue, we have in our studio Ziva Narendra. He is the president, director, and co-founder of Aviatory Indonesia. Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
Good, Yersan. Thanks for having me again.
Nice. Can we just get into the question?
Sure.
Now that, like I said earlier, the government said they will not ban the passenger, but only to tighten them. But the JS said that they're ready to adjust to the UK and the US government orders. How do you see that?
It's a good initiative on behalf of JAS as a ground handling and airport service provider in anticipation of what safety issues are ongoing or prevail currently in the industry, although that the Indonesian government has not officially put the ban in place yet. But as a private sector, I think it's always good to anticipate and be proactive.
And is it implemented in domestic flight as well?
Well, the plan is for JAS. It includes all the flights that JAS serves to the airlines, including local, regional, and international also. But if you look from the Indonesian government's policy and point of view, the rule is more aiming towards preventing of threats coming into Indonesia in the same way that US, UK, and perhaps Australia are facing right now.
And is banning electronic gadgets from airline really the answer to prevent any kind of
The answer would be yes and no.
Yes and no.
Yes, in the sense that safety is, of course, a global issue. Threats, terrorism are global issues, of course. But is it effective? I would go 50-50 with that, because if you rule out the access of laptops or large devices into airplane cabins, does that prevent from other materials or other hazardous materials being activated in some other way? If you put the laptops or the gadgets inside the check-in compartment downstairs, is it safer? Can it be triggered in some other way of remote
devices?
Exactly, yes.
Now I understand that lithium is also banned. Is that part of something that can maybe the terrorists can use as a weapon?
Lithium, and then lithium ions to the more derivatives of lithium, and also alkaline, all sort of chemicals in a sense, and not only in batteries but other supporting devices, components within electrical components that are liquid are always susceptible to hazards that catches fire. It depends on what's the quantity, how much size the chemicals get inside. So it's not just from the perspective of terrorism and also security threats, but also safety. If you have such as active noise reduction headsets, which you use for entertainment to listen to songs that are actively supported by batteries as small as 9 volts, subject to air cabin pressure, that could also leak out. So, airlines and regulators really need to see this through on which particles or what chemical hazards pose threats into airlines.
And how did it affect Indonesia as a whole? Because I understand that this issue is people, like you said, traveling to UK and the US from the Middle East.
We need to, of course, be always aware of safety. We need to give credits to the Department of Transportation, especially Director General of Civil Aviation of Indonesia, who have been working closely with the intelligence and also the police to anticipate of any security threats. We have had several attacks in the past decade. That's a good move, but we also need to take account that Indonesia is pushing to tourism right now. We want to achieve 100 million visitors by 2020. So we need to look at both sides of the spectrum and see what kind of resolution works best for Indonesia to increase the level of safety and security, but not compromising on the convenience and service aspect, because tourism is equal to service. You do not want to hamper that campaign at all.
Now, does this regulation works both ways? I mean, the US wants to travel abroad, do they have the same rules apply to them?
On passengers traveling from the US or from the UK to other countries, outside of the 8 banned countries right now, let's say a passenger wants to leave from New York to Jakarta, the security procedures you would experience at JFK would be pretty much the same as you would on US domestic flights. You would go through TSA, you would go through the x-rays, and then you have to go through the 360 degrees body check. That's the same. But for Indonesian government and Indonesian airport authorities and Department of Immigration to tackle that for passengers coming into Indonesia, what sort of screening procedures past the immigration point? If you go through Cengkareng or Soekarno-Hatta, most probably if you get out of the immigration point, you claim your baggage, and then you go through the imports and duties or quarantine if you bring anything. Do we need to escalate that security level or not? So for Indonesia, I think we need to assess would the same threat level in the US or the UK be applicable to Indonesia right now?
Okay.
In retrospect to those service and also safety aspect that I mentioned before.
How are our quarantine officers are like in Indonesia? Do they check? Do they screen every single one of them?
Not every single bag. So it's usually because security, especially quarantine securities of the Department of Quarantines and Import and Duties, they also want to speed things up without decreasing the level of safety. But usually if you carry 2 bags, one carry-on and one checked in, they could randomly decide you can take this in the X-ray and this one not, or both of them or none at all.
Now, what are the impacts on the travel ban for the UK and the US?
I always say that we have to also believe and rely and coordinate with the respective countries who are imposing these bans. We have to entrust the government of the US and also the transportation security of the US and also the UK, or whichever countries who are increasing. I just learned that Australia have also escalated some of their airline policies coming inbound to Australia to have another layer of security checks from whichever country they're coming from. So we have to entrust these institutions to run through their procedures, and for us to accept these baggages and people that we will be under safety enough.
And do you think that because of this regulation was implemented, do you think the terrorist attempt to attack the aviation sector is intensifying?
It's a matter of speed and technology. People always try to come up with different methods.
Right.
Just when you think about you've come up with the most state-of-the-art technology, people always come up with something different.
Right.
So it's a cat and mouse game. Would I say if it's escalated? I think that's really not up to me. We have to entrust the ladies and gentlemen of the intelligence.
Right.
But I would not increase the level of alertness without very precarious and cautious study before that.
Right. Now this is just for maybe the passengers, and they were told to put their gadgets in their luggages. What are the chances of that luggage being stolen because maybe their personal information are in there, and it's a computer that it's with them all the time.
Right.
Right.
That's where the convenience part really comes in, because if this rule indeed to be imposed in Indonesia and put in place, what are the guarantees for the passengers that their gadgets or their devices be in good handling? Will there be insurance if the devices are broken because of mishandling by the ground handlers? What if someone needs to rely on their laptop to work in flights? If it's a 1-hour flight, that may not matter much, but on long hauls, where people rely, especially business travelers, you do not want to take that convenience out of them. You will lose customers, and airlines will soon be making complaints about that.
Again, bringing to the business passengers, maybe does this apply to all passengers, like from first class maybe to business to economy? So it's
absolutely that should be applied to all levels of passengers.
Yes. Right. And maybe getting back to the airport again, what kind of guarantees can the airport give to the passengers that their bag will not try to get stolen? Maybe.
Well, there should be from my point of view, a statement from the airport handlers. Like in the US, every time the TSA checks your luggage for security purpose randomly, they would leave a note that your bags have been checked, but everything has been put back in place, and therefore nothing is stolen or broken according to our measures.
Right.
So that adds a sense of security if the airport authorities, let's say Angkasa Pura, were to come up with that kind of statement to be provided to customers. And furthermore, the airlines also need to bring some other added sense of security to their passengers to ensure, do you want additional insurance for your baggage, or may we suggest that you extra wrap your baggage so it would not be mishandled.
Right. Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Ethan. Thank you.